Hi Chris, right, Pike here again. Got to start this off with a bit of a disclaimer. This is private property. This is Nelstrops flour mill. It's a bit old fashioned to say the least. So this is where we load our flour from. See what we're going to do, whether this Volvo driver's going or... Right, this Volvo driver's going to go, and just up there we can see Mick walking down, and then there's one on the bridge. I'll video getting on the bridge in a moment. Right, so there's the Volvo leaving the bridge. As you can see, it doesn't have a lot of room. My mirror is in the way. Now I've got to go on the bridge. Now the bridge is a weigh bridge. It's a giant set of bathroom scales in the middle of the yard, and I'm going to weigh the wagon. We'll have a go at videoing this, but we could end up making a fool of ourselves. So I've just turned the hazard lights on, turned the beacon lights on, and I'm actually going to drive onto this giant roundabout against the flow of traffic, so I might have to just drop the phone, but here we go. Now if this one wasn't here loading in the old half of the mill, we wouldn't need to access the roundabout. Now the bulk tippers, them lads moan here, but they're just babies. They've got short trailers, so they can get on the bridge easily. Oh, got a pedestrian wanting to cross, so we'll have to let him cross. So there's the roundabout, as you can see. Hang on a second. Just hang on a sec. Danny! Recording another video for Chris, that lad. Right, so we're back here in the mill. This is the loading yard. Now, there's a garage there with the doors open, a bit of a yellow frame. That's where we're going. But we need to go in backwards. So, we've got to turn around, and there's not a lot of room. So you'll see how tight of a space we can turn this round in. You can see the front's coming round, and then we don't have to go very far so we can see the trailer. Look how clear you can see the wheels skipping and sliding, and they're actually going backwards now even though we're going forwards. And there we are. We're now facing where we came in. Let's see if I can get this in one-handed while a video. You can see the mirror, get round the skip. So I can't see the trailer in that mirror, can this side, but I can't see the hole now where we're going. To be fair, it is much easier for me this than somebody else just turning up, because I have done this hundreds and hundreds of times. I might not get it in one, but see if we can. You can see the back of the trailers now starting to line up. We are actually going in at an angle. Turn the light on just so you can possibly see the light at the back of the trailer. Right, we're in. Now I have to put the phone down there. But as you can see, there's yellow lines. Now that yellow line's a guide, so now my wheel arch is one big concrete line further back. So I know the top will be in the right place now. You can see the front of the tank's quite high. Now I've got to load into the back of the tank and try and get the flour to the front. So what we'll do is use this remote control. You switch it on with a double click, press the down arrow. You can see the back of the wagon is coming down slowly, but it's coming down, and that is bringing the front of the tank down to make the tank much more level. Right, now what I've just done before I did this video, started this little bit, is I've opened these two lids. As you can see, we're lined up perfectly. Now there's two lids. This one here has got about 60 tonne of flour in the top. That control panel tells me how much it's set to come out, so that's 28 tonnes and a bit. Now on the weighbridge we were 14 tonne 6, so if you want to do the maths, we'll be under the 44 tonne. Not by much, but we will be. And maybe a tonne to play with, depends how big we pack lunches. This little pneumatic valve, flip that, and as you can see the head goes in. We'll just give it a little bit of a guide. That's in there. Now this will create an enormous amount of dust, so for that we'll put in the dust extractor. Whoops, got the headphones, and this just literally sits on the tank. We'll turn it on and wait for a flashing green light. Now what's happening is the bin up there is being filled with air, so that's pressurising that. When it hits the correct pressure, it will release that and throw it out. Now I would imagine I'll get about, with the weather being like this, maybe 19 tonnes in, and then I'll have to take this out, drive out of the bay as quickly as I can, really aggressively, and then stand on the brakes. There was a little video sent last week, and that will move the flour like water to the front, and then it'll stick on the front. Now what we can also do is part my daily checks. You have pipe work on the top. Now this pipe here is what's called a top air, so we can put air in the tank through that from all that pipe work at the back. But what we have here is, this is a one-way valve which is set at about half a bar, roughly 10 psi, and we have a test button, so we're supposed to press this every day. Make sure it springs back out. So that springing air is working fine. Now this is a safety feature. Sorry, I'm just walking back through the gate, more just to talk to you. Next to it is a safety valve as well. Now what happens is, I'm putting warm flour in here now, but it won't actually fill the tank. Because the weight of flour, if we were to fill the tank, would be overweight. That's going to leave quite a gap of air at the top. Now it's warm that's going in. When it's in, I'm going to seal the tank off. Now we expect to be a very cold night tonight. I'd expect ice on the tank tonight actually. The air in the tank will become much colder and contract, and it will create a negative pressure, because the pressure inside the tank will be less than the atmosphere pressure. Now if that pressure ever gets more than minus half a bar, that spring will open and flood a load of air in the tank. The tank is designed to be pressurised from the inside out and not the outside in. That's a vacuum tank that can do that. Big notable differences to a normal tank is it'll have ribs welded to the outside of the tank. This is to give it the strength to stop it imploding on itself. Right, so as you can see, that's what's left. So after I've shunted, that's got to go in. So at about just shy of a third of the load. Now we turned it off, we've pulled the extractor out, and we've brought the head up. As you can see, this hole, this hatch is full, and this one isn't. Now it started to spread the flour to the front of the tank, but it predominantly here. So by hurtling out and slamming on the brakes, hopefully we should shunt the flour forwards. That's quite violent, that, so sadly I can't film that myself while I do it. The other video tried to show it, but it didn't look as good, as violent as it actually was. That was a video we sent you last week, I think. Right, so we're back again now, and as you can see, the flower is lower than halfway up, and if you look to the back, it's a lot less than that. That was my headphones wire catching on the handle, nearly ripped my ears off. Oh well. So we'll carry on putting more in, and then that should be that. Right, that's pretty much that really, Chris. Said the gnat and the lovely little beard shroud, as they call it. This is just to stop any hairs dropping off and landing in the tank. As you can see, the plug back in to fill up the last bit. Just a bit more information for you. When the bulk tippers drive in, they have to pull over to the left hand side, which is where the lab is, the laboratory even. Now that has a sampler that is able to go into the trailer, take a couple of samples out from various places of the grain that comes in. Now the lab checks to make sure that grain meets the standards that Nelstrops needs to make sure it's not too wet, there's no animals living in it, mites, flies, things like that that can happen from the crop. When that's approved, that then goes into one side of the mill, it's processed through the mill, and then eventually it comes to here, and then we load it in the tanks. Now what I didn't show you was when I've removed the filling head and the extractor, I've actually taken a sample of flour from the tank. So at 20 tons in, I've taken a sample of flour. Now that sample of flour I take across to the lab. The lab then process it to make sure the flour is up to not Nelstrops standards, but the final customer standards. I am then given a certificate of conformity to say how that flour meets, and that same sample I took, after the lab's finished with it, it's bagged up again, and that accompanies me and is given to the final customer. So the final customer, if they've got their own lab, they can check it as well and make sure that everything confirms. So in theory, if you buy a loaf of, say, Warburton's bread in Aberdeen and a loaf of Warburton's bread in, I don't know, Dover, Land's End and John O'Groats, it should taste exactly the same, because all the ingredients, no matter which bakery around the country's been taken to, they should all meet the same standards. Alright, have a good day, keep your chin up. This isolation business, it's getting to everybody, but let's just keep going.